What up, you guys? Happy Saturday, June 3rd. So I was kicking back earlier, making my list of content for the week, and I like having that routine, that daily program, because that allows me to get stuff done. So I was thinking about a lot of my moves, a lot of my actions back when I first started partying. I didn't, if you're new here, welcome. I was an athlete my whole life, guys. Got my first job at 16. Didn't start smoking weed until I was 18, after high school. One of the main reasons why I started going that route is around that time I started experiencing my first, I guess, depression. It wasn't clinical, it wasn't diagnosed, nothing like that. Here's why I was experiencing that. Played baseball my whole life up until freshman year. I wasn't the best baseball player, but I always got on base. A lot of favoritism on the team. I didn't like that at all. That just bad energies, man. So my wrestling coach comes to my house. He's a family friend. Talks to my parents, but specifically to me. And he asks what I think about wrestling, right? He's the head coach for the team. Awesome guy. Love that guy. He asks what I think about wrestling. I was like, man, I've never done anything like that. Did baseball my whole life. So I talked to him, and he's like, just come check us out. Stop by the practice room and see what you think. So I went in there like around 3 o'clock, I think the next day or whatever day that was, pretty quick. So I went in that practice room just to see what it was, what was going on. And I was amazed, man. I was really amazed. Just seeing, for one, the camaraderie between the guys. And two, just that intense, just grinding and ground and pound, that hand-to-hand, not hand-to-hand combat, but just the roughness of the sport, right? So I decided to give it a try. And long story short, my sophomore year, I joined the wrestling team. Started off at JZ. Started off at JV, junior varsity, and then I think my junior year I started. I excelled pretty quick and started doing varsity. Started wrestling on the varsity team. Anyway, so I wrestled sophomore through senior year. Okay. I didn't know what I was going to do after high school. College was the next step, right? As programmed as we are, college is the next step. We didn't have any entrepreneurs in my family, nothing like that. As far as I know, I'm the only one that ever started a business. And that's thriving. Started it from scratch. That's what I'm talking about. From the ground up. So I didn't know what I was going to do after high school. I still loved wrestling. We did freestyle wrestling in the summertime, so I was wrestling year round, constantly on a diet, dedicated to my craft. So our university out here, the University of Arizona, didn't have a wrestling team. So the next option for me here in Tucson was to try out for Pima Community College. So I went out there, did some rolling around with the guys, wrestling, right? Attended a few practices. And I was weighing probably like 130s. I was like, my wrestling weight class was 125, and then when I graduated, I was probably like 130, 135, so about 10 pounds over. So if I were to wrestle at the 130-pound weight class, I'd be wrestling guys that are much bigger than me, because in wrestling, the majority of guys drop weight. That's why we're always on diets. So you drop to a lower weight class, maybe have an advantage. There's some guys that are just natural and they don't care what they weigh. They master the basics, and that's just how they have it, right? That's just how they got it. A lot of those guys have been wrestling since they were 5 or 6, maybe even younger than that. I didn't start till my sophomore year, but I excelled pretty quick. Did pretty good for the only 3 years that I was wrestling. So that was my passion, man. I was really looking forward to join this wrestling team. But I ran into an issue. If I were to wrestle at 130 some pounds or 120 some pounds, I wouldn't have been able to be the number one guy on that team in that weight class, be the starting guy. Because all those guys were studs. They had the best of the best here in Tucson at Pima Community College at that time. State champions, all of that good stuff, right? So I couldn't beat those guys. My next option was for me to drop down to 117 pounds. I was already lean, great shape, but I didn't have the body fat on me to drop that much weight. I was able to squeeze it out one time when I had to lose 14 pounds in 2 weeks for a tournament in Las Vegas. That was the only time. But this was like a 2 to 3 years after that tournament. So we work out hard, and I'm still growing, as a kid, still growing, filling into my body. And that was my option, 117 pounds. I knew I couldn't do that, man. So I was out of options. I could either be the guy that's benched, if for some reason the starting guy gets hurt, then I would maybe have an opportunity. But we would always have wrestle-offs, which means a few of the guys on our team who are similar weight, we'd wrestle off, and whoever wins gets to fill that weight class on the team, be the number one starting guy. So I was screwed. Damned if I did, damned if I didn't. I was stressing, man. Super depressed. I didn't want to stick with my options. I didn't want to wrestle at 130 pounds, and I didn't want to wrestle at 117 pounds. So I was like, I guess I'm done here. So, fast forward some time, hanging out with my wrestling buddies that didn't wrestle as well. They didn't make the team for their reasons. So we all hang out, start partying a little more, sober still, no drugs, nothing like that. So we'd be hanging out, having fun, chilling on the weekends, staying up late, whatever. And I decide to try weed for the first time. And I loved it, just kicking back with the boys, right? smoking weed, just laughing, goofing, ordering pizza, just being young kids and living reckless. But I was 18 at the time. In my grades at the community college, I dropped out of the same math class 3 times. Math is my worst subject. So I had a lot going on in my personal life. A lot of pressure. Still not sure what to do in my life. But the only thing that made me feel good was going to school so I could see the girls and hanging out with my boys. I'd start going to school high. Then I just dropped out of college, right? Fast forward a little more time. And then I start smoking weed on a daily basis. Daily basis, man. Going out more, coming home late, or not even coming home. My mom always said, if you want to stay over at somewhere or whatever, just give us a call, you know. And I'd be passing out at people's places, man. So there were so many red flags at that time. I wish there was enough maybe education at that time as far as like addiction and all that, but I graduated in 98, so this was like 1999. I was 19, 18, 19. So throughout that time, you know, I still had a job, but I'd still be partying a lot, man. Just coming home hammered. My dad wanted to crack the whip, per se, right? But my mom, she didn't let that happen, man. And that, I think that kind of affected the direction of my life at that time. Not blaming her, but I think things would have been different if my dad cracked the whip, per se, and raised me how he wanted to. There were so many red flags, man. I wish I was able to just stop and join the military. That right there was my number one regret. I was going to talk about that in a separate video, but that was my ultimate regret, man. I got a DUI 21 days after my 21st birthday, September 22nd, 2001. And at that time, I wanted to join the Marines. I went in and talked to a recruiter and told him about my case. Things are probably different now, but the case was still active, so he wanted me to take care of that and then come back and then take the ASVAB test. But I never did. I was like, fuck. It's like, damn, man. I just want to change. You know, I think deep down inside, I was screaming. You know, I needed help. Back then, I couldn't stop if I wanted to. I was only smoking weed and maybe drinking some beer and all that, but I couldn't stop even then. I just needed a roadblock right in front of me. I just needed to be, like, thrown in a van and taken somewhere. Just to dry out, right? So many red flags, man. So, things, of course, were hectic at the house. I'd be coming home late. I'd come home, think I'm slick, sneak in the house with my key, go through the door. All the lights would be off. Mom would just be sitting in a chair waiting for me. Of course, we go back and forth, or she would primarily. I'd just walk to my room and lock the door, pass out, do it all over again, right? Things are just hectic in that manner, man. The only time things with my dad got physical is just, I think like one time during the day, I stepped outside, smoked some weed in my car, and then came back inside. I thought I'd be fine because I had Visine, but as we all know, weed sticks to your clothes, so they smelt it. Um, Dad was waiting for me inside, so we talked. Or he was trying to talk to me. He's like, just talking like a dad. And I think I may have disrespected him or something. And we just kind of wrestled a bit, took me down. He let me know who the alpha was that day. No punches were thrown, nothing like that, man. But I sometimes really think about that, if life would have been different. But at the end of the day, man, like, they only knew what they knew, and what I was doing wasn't working. So that's how that is, right? Mom didn't let Dad raise me the way he thought of. My dad was in the Army. I've always looked up to Pops. I wanted to be in the military, but I wasn't in the right headspace, and I wasn't doing the right things in life at that time. So I was just a Tasmanian devil, man, all the way. Like age 20, 21, all that, man. Moved out, stayed with a girl for a little bit. That didn't work out. Met another girl, stayed with her in her apartment. That didn't work out, went back home. And then I get introduced to H, age 25. Not H, I'm sorry, pills, Vicodin and all that. Did that for a couple of years. And then tried H when I was 27 and went for one of the craziest rides of my life. So in closing with this video, I was just freestyling with it, man. I intended to talk about the red flags, and how I wish things could have went different, or how I think things would have panned out, if things would have been different. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter, because that's in the past. All we have is today. And where I am at today, I'm happy. I'm totally fine. If I never did dope, I probably would have never started my business, have the dogs I have, or have this mind frame that I have. None of that probably would have been possible. So it's good to think about, or I don't know if it's good, but I often think about, life in the past and my decision making, but none of that matters. None of that matters. What matters is today. If you get knocked down, you get back up, you keep trying new things. As long as you're happy, man. Work on your dream. If you're working for somebody else, or even yourself, work on your dream. Do what it takes. Do what it takes. You don't want to have to start life over at 39 or even older. So, just focus on today. All right? We'll deal with tomorrow if and when that day comes. Thanks for listening.